My parents were, they lived on Calpili Street. They had a house there from back in the 90s. And they were at the first eruption site. And I remember my mom calling me and she's like, oh, it's really not that bad. You know, it's kind of calm. It's okay. And the next morning, like 12 hours later, it was erupting under their house. So it escalated quickly from my perspective. Just got thrown into the mix immediately. So got the whole range of grief and everything right in the beginning, and having to go into acceptance and then continuing from there with trying to make a difference in the whole thing. So Ryan created a Hawaii Tracker in 2014 to track the Pahoa eruption when lava was just outside of town. And it had a steady following during the eruption. There was, for those that weren't there, there was some really heavy controls on the information that was publicly available. And it created a way for people to talk about and share information about the eruption, that flow, that was outside of the controlled information flow. And then we get into this eruption, and the group is, still around, still being circulated with viewers and followers. Then it blew up when this eruption happened. There was a bunch of different groups that sprung forth, but Hawaii Tracker, we were really diligent in the information that we put forth, and he brought in a bunch of different help, what we called the core team of Hawaii Tracker, and that's going to be Ken Boyer, Andrew Hara, Sarah Wilkinson, Harry Durgan, Philip, Ryan, and myself. Yeah, and John during the duration. John Stallman was with us during the event. We were able to build off of each other's information.
There was a crack here before that was quite large, but from looking at the size of the crack and the way the lava has filled it and left berms, we can tell that the crack was full of lava and then drained partway and then stabilized, drained again, stabilized, and drained again. So my background is that I'm a geologist, and I first came to Hawaii in 1998 to work as a volunteer at the Volcano Observatory. And I was fortunate to be able to be involved with lots of different groups, even though I was assigned to one group primarily, but that kind of gave me some of the experience, or really the curiosity, to continue exploring that further throughout my education. The first couple weeks of my involvement in Eruption, I was spending time at Pu'uhonua, Puna. I'd known Ikaika for already 5-6 years already at that point. So then in May, I was following Ikaika's videos online like everyone else. And I saw that he was doing amazing things, and when he announced that he was opening the hub to address the concerns of evacuees, then I offered my help to him then, and he said, yeah, we need you yesterday. So I was like, he says, come on down, So I gathered my basic presentation materials very quickly the first day. Spent a couple hours doing that. Then I came down and basically was at the hub for most of the next 2 months, or 3 months, And only at a certain point later on, when the kind of initial rush had come and people were dispersing already and having to get news from Hilo or from Kona or from the mainland where they went, that I started doing more of the social media thing, right? And at that point is when, shortly after that, Dan and Ryan approached me, because they were trying to fact check and confirm everything as much as possible, and I needed someone to confirm some of the science.
Les Pedersen and myself, we started doing different mapping projects throughout the eruption. From living in Leilani, it was disgusting. It was an insult, the numbers that Civil Defense would put out. They would say, there's 44 homes lost, and that's a number that they were putting out in mid-May, late May. 44 homes lost. I'm like, I know of 40 homes on my street that are gone. And I know of 5 streets that are like this. There's 200 homes lost in Leilani alone. What are you talking about? And not only am I just gonna say that, based upon growing up and living out here, I can prove this to you. I pulled real property tax data from the tax department for the county, and then grabbed from USGS their preliminary lava flow data that they would produce daily, import that onto the same map. But then you still have to use the aerial images from guys like Mick Kalber, Bruce Omori, Scott Wilson, those guys that were sending us stuff daily. to be able to superimpose those onto the same map and then say, okay, this house is gone, but the shed remains. This house is still there, but it filled in the pool.
Besides all the things mentioned, people on the ground would go and check on the
Exactly.
actual spots, right?
And
And this all happened faster than the county could keep up. And, the county did eventually catch up, but
it took them
it took them a long time, right? And that kind of goes to show that that's the beauty of the
Right.
trucker community, is like, the speed at which things came out.
Yep. So when Kapoho fell, we had already pulled all of the tax information for the area, already had set up for it. So when the images started coming through of houses being taken, we could do it in real time. We could, as soon as we get the images, it wasn't, okay, cool, pull the tax information. It's, no, just add an X to it to say that it's gone, and then it will import from the spreadsheet. Eventually, it appeared the governor released the request for individual assistance to FEMA. And on the second page, right after the introduction and everything, and all of the authors, it's a picture of my map. That was their official map. That was like the thing that they were stating their argument based off of.
This is an example of what people encounter as they're getting back to their property and trying to recover. They'll find a hole, in this case it's a little tree mold, and they feel heat coming out of it, and then they wonder, is it really over? I had done plenty of presentations before I had them ready from my tour days, where I presented the story of eruptions and how things progressed and all of that with, concrete examples. And so it was a pretty simple thing to just selectively choose the ones that applied to the situation in 2018 and keeping it short and sweet, give people examples of what had happened in the past, what could happen, the general order of things, the way things generally went. And, my whole goal was to give them, realistic information that they could then make decisions upon, right? Because the hardest thing, from my perspective, for an evacuee is being forced out suddenly with not a whole lot of warning and having to make some big decisions in a very short amount of time, and then not knowing what the parameters were to decide, not knowing what all the context was. And so my goal is to give them information so that they can make better decisions. Like, should I stay or should I go? How much should I take out? How many chances am I gonna have to go and move things from my house? Or, things as simple as that. And that's why my first couple weeks at the hub, I think were probably, in my opinion, what I'm most proud of is that was the one-on-one time, talking to people like, well, where is my house? It's here on a map, and where is my house? It's here on a map. And in those days, the USGS maps were coming out fairly slowly still. So we actually had our own map on a table at the hub, and people would come back and report, oh, I was on this street and the flow is at this point, or this street has a crack in it here that can't be passed. So we were drawing the map in real time based on the residents that we're talking to after these one-on-one consultations. We'd update the map. Here's what's new. Next, and we go through the cycle that way, right? So we actually, and eventually when a USGS map came out, it reflected what we had already done, except we had 20 iterations in between because we needed it every 30 minutes to be a better map.
Last month, we were invited to the Facebook Community Summit at Facebook's headquarters in just out of San Jose. And we went and toured the facilities and checked out we got to meet with all these other influential groups at Facebook. And it was kind of like a celebration of what they consider leaders in their community. And there was probably about 300-400 people invited total. So it was awesome to be able to go to and talk to the actual people that are in charge of development for Facebook and in charge of groups, and be able to talk with them about what we need and what they're trying to accomplish with with our group and with other groups as well, and be able to just interchange information with all these other like-minded groups. I mean, not everybody was there in a similar type situation for disaster management and information distribution, but there were some, and we got to see how they did do their thing, and how we got to talk story about the differences and the similarities between the disasters that we've faced. And it was just a really good opportunity to network with different types of groups and influential people at the company that we work through, so through Facebook.
Just to clarify, it was Ryan and Dane who went.
Yeah.
I myself didn't go.
So this thing, it can film in 4K. It has a 12 megapixel camera for stills, and it just is gets good flight time.
It's wherever something is happening, the people of that community can inform the other people of that community what's happening in their own community without concern of, well, I don't care about Honolulu, I don't care about even Hilo necessarily, right?
Yeah.
176.
Okay, that's more like it. We still do temperature checks out here. We do rounds around all the key locations on the rift and the Fisher line back here. Drive up, check it out, make sure everything's, you know, same as yesterday. Nothing really's changing. The only thing that really changes is the amount of steam you see. Some days it'll be like today where there's not a lot of steam at all, barely any. Then there'll be other days after heavy rain when it's kind of cold out. You just can turn it into a steam bath at, you know, many different spots.
And we're trying to help keep people at ease, and, you know, if there's something does come up, we'll certainly sound, you know, let people understand that. We're still presenting USGS data and helping people understand what it actually might mean, or where they can access it themselves, or let them know that USGS is putting out those reports as well, and just, you know, repeating them and helping people essentially recover from the situation now, which is, you know, as much a physical thing as it is a mental thing.
Yeah.
Even for us, yeah.
Definitely.